Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Buddy Study Group for Worksite Solutions. And we are joined by a wonderful friend, advocate, and partner of Buddy INS today, Rosanna Boehmer of The Standard, of formerly and currently and transitioningly Allstate benefits. And Rosanna is such an excellent help to us, somebody we talk to every single day. And Rosanna's here to give us a bit of the rundown of the long-term care portfolio for Allstate benefits slash the standard. Rosanna, you'll just have to tell me how to address you going forward. But we're going to go through product overview of the guaranteed whole life product with long-term care and the brand new term to 100 product with the long-term care rider on it, and go over just some best practices, what it's like working with Allstate, and we'll do some case studies in Q&A with whatever time we have left. So feel free to ask any questions for Rosanna in the chat, and I'll make sure that they get answered live and in color or after we're through with Rosanna's piece. So, Rosanna, really appreciate you being here today, and you can take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that very nice introduction. It has been a pleasure working with the Buddy team for, gosh, maybe about 2.5 years now. I think we've been working together. And like Jason says, because of these two products that we're going to be talking about today, I'm speaking to them very frequently about these products and where to best utilize them and how to win in a lot of situations. A little bit about me: I have been with Allstate Benefits, now the standard, for a little over 10 years now, all to do with voluntary benefits. The last couple of years, the focus has been with life insurance with long-term care. That's been a very popular and growing topic. So we're going to be talking about that a lot today. Prior to working in employee benefits, I was a life agent. I started my career as a life agent with New York Life, a name that I think a lot of people know, and did have my experience selling their flagship product, which was Group Whole Life, as well as long-term care. So very familiar with that arena. When I got into benefits, though, I had to say, boy, this is a lot easier. This is a lot easier to work with a group of people and offer guaranteed issue products, to a number of people versus, chasing down one person at a time. So I've really enjoyed it. Like I said, been here 10 years now with Allstate Benefits, now the standard. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So I'm happy to be here with you all today. I'm going to make sure that everything is working okay. Jason, give me the thumbs up if you can see my screen and my presentation.
We're good.
We're good. Awesome. So let's get started for today. So as Jason mentioned, we are now part of the standard as of April 1st. The standard, who many of us know, they have a great reputation for their voluntary benefit products. Specifically, I think many are familiar with their disability products, their group term life. But as of April 1st, they have purchased the voluntary benefits division of Allstate Benefits. Allstate Benefits was actually made up of three different departments: the voluntary benefits, the group health, which has now been sold to Nationwide, and then the individual marketplace. So the voluntary benefits, where I have been the last 10 years, was sold to the standard. So as of April 1st, we are now referred to as American Heritage EVB, part of the standard. Sorry, I lost my word there for a second. So it is a little bit confusing. We are in the middle of the transition. It's only been a few months, since this took place. So right now we're in the middle of rebranding. If you do reach out to me after this call and you're interested in a quote or some marketing material, you will see that things are going to say Allstate Benefits. But I imagine hopefully by the end of this year, things will be rebranded and you will see things listed as the standard. But we are still operating exactly the same. We're actually operating kind of like two separate companies under one umbrella. What the standard has currently, the products that they have, we on the Allstate Benefits side didn't have, like things like group term life, a true group term life, and a long-term disability. The standard has, and what the standard doesn't have, we have, which is our long-term care and life products that we're going to be talking about today. So it's been a great marriage. We have a really rich product portfolio. Like I mentioned, the division that I've been a part of has been voluntary benefits. So for those of you that don't know much about voluntary benefits, those types of plans include things like accident insurance, critical illness, cancer, disability, and life insurance. So for our conversation today, we're going to be talking about something called hybrid life. That's what we refer to it here at the company. But any of these voluntary benefit products, if you have any questions about them or interest, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to provide you any information on that. So let's talk a little bit about life insurance. We're going to be talking about two different products today. For the last year or so, I have primarily been talking about group whole life with long-term care. But as Jason mentioned, most recently in the last few months, we now also have a product called Term to 100 with long-term care. So we're going to be talking mostly about the group whole life, but we will be talking also a little bit about the Term to 100 because it's so brand new. I don't have too much marketing material and things to share, but I can definitely share what the riders are and how they work. So we'll be talking about that today. So let's talk about the product itself. Now, I know everybody here is familiar with life insurance and how it works. The group whole life is a permanent product, as we know. It's going to have those 3 Gs, right? Those 3 guarantees. So you're going to have your guaranteed death benefit, your guaranteed premium, and your cash value. This is no different here. But with this product that we offer, it does have a minimum guaranteed interest rate for the cash value. Right now, it's about 4.5%. It's very easy to sell. There's no illustrations or anything needed. For the most part, it's guaranteed issue. However, we'll talk a little bit about that there is an ability to sell above that guaranteed issue amount with, EOI questions, very simplified issue is what we call it. So you are able to do that. The product itself, the group whole life product itself is available from ages 18 to 80. And then it has some available riders on it that we're going to dig into. But again, the whole benefit of a group whole life plan is that level premium and that death, the death benefit. It's guaranteed. So that's the product itself. Again, I know that you're all familiar with that. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the riders in just a second. So with the group whole life, here on the slide, you see the different optional riders. You got a 20-year term, you got a waiver premium for disability, an accelerated death benefit for terminal illness. But then here on the right, which we're going to really dig into today, are these long-term care riders. So you got your basic long-term care, then you got your long-term care with extension of benefit, restoration of benefit, and then if you want your Cadillac plan that has both, we can do so. So we're going to talk about that today. The second product that we have is called Group Term to 100, and it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a product, it's a term product, so there is no cash value that accrues with it, but it's a benefit that stays with you till age 100. So you've got a premium that stays the same. It's locked in until age 100. It does also have some additional riders. Again, you got that terminal illness rider, a total disability waiver premium rider. And it's not listed here because, again, this product is brand new, but it also has those long-term care riders that we're going to be talking about. So again, premium will stay level to age 100. This piece right here, I know we're going to have a lot of questions on it, so we can talk about that. The death benefit is guaranteed for the first 5 years of coverage. So if you're speaking to a group that a guaranteed death benefit is more important, then you're going to want to shift towards that group whole life. But again, every product is going to have its fit. Every group is going to have its product fit. And just like every individual, we're going to value and we're going to find the needs of that group. So whether it's the group whole life, if that's the fit, that's the way we're going to go, or the term to 100. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we have these options available to us. And of course, the term is going to be a lot less expensive than your permanent product. So again, that might be why we choose to go that route, depending on, what the type of group is. What do they do for a living? Maybe they're high wage earners. Maybe it's a law firm or an accounting firm where we know that income is higher. We can probably shift and talk about that group whole life because we know that because of the salaries there, they can afford it. And then maybe we have more of a blue collar, gray collar type of industry. Maybe the term's a better fit. So regardless, we're going to work through it together. We'll decide what's the best fit for the group. But the exciting thing is that we have options that we are able to extend. Now, I don't have to talk about this piece right here very much with this group because I know that you're all very familiar with long-term care. But the reason that Jason and I are having these conversations on a daily basis is because the need is there and it's great. And many are not prepared for it. So this is our opportunity to be able to offer a guaranteed issue long-term care on a group life chassis. So that's not something that we should take lightly because all of us that have sold long-term care in our career, individual long-term care, know two things. Number one, it's very expensive and it's very hard to qualify for. So why not go this route where we're able to extend it on a guaranteed issue basis and get somebody that may not be able to qualify individually the care and the coverage that they need. So that's really the value and the importance and why we're having our call today. So let's talk a little bit about the hybrid life. Now, with the rider, you heard me say earlier that the product itself, the life insurance product itself, can go up to age 80. However, when we start talking about adding the long-term care riders to it, that issue age stops at 70. Now, let me make sure I explain that properly. That doesn't mean that if somebody is 40 years old or 50 years old and then they turn 70, that they're no longer eligible for the long-term care. No, that's not what I mean. Issue age. They have to be under 70 years of age to be able to get this product. So if long-term care is something they're interested in, then we need to make sure we get it to them, get them enrolled in it before the age of 70. The rates are based on the age that they are of the effective date. So if we're enrolling today for an effective date of October 1st, they're however old they are on October 1st is the rate they're going to get. So it's not, I know with some carriers, the rate may be determined at application. That is not the case here. It is determined on, and we know we cannot backdate. I saw that one pop up. No, we
It's a
cannot.
good question.
Yeah, it's a good question, but no, we have to be able to, and this is why it's so important.
Attained age at effective date as opposed to attained age at application or age nearest.
Yep, absolutely. But again, most popular and valuable feature that we can extend is that guaranteed issue. So we want to make sure we take advantage of that. So we just have a little bit of a case example here. So we have John that enrolls in a $40,000 group whole life policy with the accelerated death benefit for long-term care. John is certified chronically ill, so he requires long-term care. He files his claim. He has a 4% long-term care benefit. So he will begin to receive $1,600 a month for 25 months. So we're going to dig into that percentage and that benefit period. But this is just an example, again, to reduce any costs that John may have out of pocket, savings account, creating more debt for himself. Why do that when we have a policy available for him that's going to pay him when he needs it most? And that's really, again, the value of discussing this. So let's dig into these riders a little bit. So the first piece, and just so I want to make sure I explain this properly. When we design this plan, however we design it, with whatever riders we design it, it is all decided at the group level. So if Jason and I are part of a group, but Jason doesn't want the long-term care and I do, it's a little too bad, because if we designed it with the long-term care, that means everybody's getting the plan with the long-term care. So the decisions for the riders are made among us here, amongst your buddy team member, with me as your carrier rep, and with, you as a broker and the group. We make that decision together as to how that plan design is going to look. So whether we design it with just the basic long-term care rider, that's that first piece there. Whether we decide to add it with the restoration of benefit, the extension of benefit, or the whole shebang, it's decided at the group level. So the long-term care piece itself, if we're just going to offer, let's just say the life product with the long-term care, it's going to come at either a 4% or a 6% benefit. 4% has a benefit period of 25 months. 6% has a benefit period of 17 months. So we make the decision. Do we want to go with the 4%? Do we want to go with the 6%? Obviously, 4% has a longer benefit period. But again, either whichever way we go, we're going to decide at the group level. Now, because this is an accelerated death benefit, the long-term care benefit is being pulled from that death benefit. So if that death benefit is important and that is something that they want to make sure that they want to keep that life insurance intact, then we want to make sure we add that restoration of benefit, because what that is doing is keeping that death benefit whole. So even though the long-term care, let's just say we're using an example of $100,000 just to make math easy. The insured has a $100,000 benefit. They have the long-term care benefit and they have the restoration of benefit. As that benefit is being pulled, if they're on a long-term care claim, as it's being pulled from that death benefit, the restoration of benefit is restoring that death benefit back to $100,000. So how awesome is that? That they're being able to pull, in this example, $100,000 of long-term care benefit. When they exhaust that, if unfortunately they pass away, they're still leaving behind that $100,000 of life insurance to their loved ones. So if that's important to them, if that's important to the group, then we want to make sure we add that restoration of benefit. Extension of benefit is exactly what it sounds like. Now, we talked about a benefit period of either 25 months or 34 months. If we add an extension of benefit, what that does is it basically doubles that benefit period. So if we add that onto our 25-month benefit period, that benefit period is now 50 months. If we add it onto the 34 months or the 17 months, it is now 34 months. So essentially doubling that death benefit and doubling that long-term care benefit, I should say, because it does not, your death benefit remains the same, but your long-term care pool now just went from $100,000 to $200,000, adding that extension of benefit. And then, of course, we have both. So if you want a really rich plan, we're going to call it our Cadillac plan that has both the restoration of benefit, keeps that death benefit intact, and we want to extend that long-term care benefit and really grow it, then we want to add both the restoration and the extension of benefit. How are we doing so far, Jason?
Yeah,
And
good. And I'm addressing some questions as they come up in the chat. And just on this particular slide from a Buddy INS perspective and how we generally see the plan designs and the value of the plan, we're generally looking at bullet point 4. We're generally looking at 6% acceleration on I don't know if there's any case where we haven't
I don't think so.
quoted that bottom line unless we were completely unable to due to state specific restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Given how the plan prices out, given the value that you get in exchange, especially for the extension of benefit rider, but also for that restoration of death benefit, you're looking at situations where you could potentially end up with, 3 times insurance value when you consider 100,000 death benefit purchased. You're looking at 200,000 of long-term care available to you, an extra 100,000 of death benefit once that acceleration does happen. So, given the overall leverage you get for your dollar, we're looking at that bottom line on basically every single case we can.
It is every single case.
I was gonna say I
Yeah.
don't like to speak in absolutes, but I'm pretty sure this is actually an absolute.
Yeah, every proposal request I get from Buddy is usually that 6% with the restoration and the extension. Now, one
Yeah.
thing I want to point, oh,
So
sorry.
just one more question we had. Chris
Mhm.
asked, what's the minimum group size to get the Cadillac? That is actually available to groups down to 3 lives. However, we do have a 6 application minimum for
All
any
groups.
plan that we would
Mhm.
look at here for the group whole life or the term to 100. So what that
Mhm.
means is you will need to add another line of coverage and have all 3 employees participate in that plan, generally through employer funding, to hit that 6 application minimum. So
Mhm.
even if we have 3 lives, we get there with 3 plus 3. So you could add a low cost accident plan, low cost critical illness plans, something of that nature. Rosanna's very good at getting on a call and working
Mhm.
out what is that maybe piece we can also slot into your benefits to make sure we hit the app minimum and can get guaranteed issue long-term
Mhm.
care. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, you know this better than I do, but I think American Heritage is one of the only carriers that works with very small groups like this.
Yes.
I
So we
believe,
have
yeah.
Transamerica who has a 5 application minimum and will only go down to 5 lives. There's no adding another line and taking smaller groups. So you guys
Mhm.
actually go down to the smallest number we possibly can for
Mhm.
group long-term care right now.
Yes. So thank you for that. And you answered it perfectly. So one thing I do want to mention is that these are all separate riders. So when you work with your buddy team or you work with me, we're going to design, like I mentioned before, based on what we think the group, would benefit from. But if it's just the long-term care by itself, if it's the long-term care with the restoration or the extension, it's not all or nothing. We can pick and choose and design it again the best way that it's going to fit the needs of the group. I already talked about this, but just again to reiterate, you got two different plan options with the long-term care, the 4% and the 6%. 4% just has a longer benefit period of 25 months, but then you get an example there of adding that extension of benefit that will extend it to 50 months, on the 6% option, 34 months. So these options right here are available on both the group whole life and the term to 100. Now, the term to 100, being that it's newer, I found out this morning, it is available in 40 states. And don't ask me what those are because I don't know them off the top of my head.
There
Like
are more that were just released. We were sitting
yeah,
on, I think,
yep,
27 just like 2 or 3 days ago,
yep.
and
Mhm.
we just got a burst of 13 of
Yes,
them
which is
practically overnight.
exciting. I can tell you the one that I know we don't have is where I'm at in California. We do not have the term to 100. We do have the group whole life and
New
the long term.
Yorkers don't hold your breath either.
New Yorkers. Yeah. So those are the two I know
Do we
that
know
we,
about Texas, Rosanna? Just
I don't.
we'll get
I
back to you on that one, Chris.
Yeah, I'm happy. So the best thing to do is, and I'm going to share my information, or of course you got Buddy's information, but if you have a group in a specific state, best thing to do is reach out to me, reach out to, Jason. I'm going to make sure that they have the information as well. And we can either give you a sample proposal for that state and let you know whether we have the term in that state or the group whole life. But that's the best way for us to let you know. Just let us know what groups you're or what states you're working in.
Yeah, and when you
You know,
all work with us and consider us an extension of your team, think of Rosanna as an extension of ours. I mean, she basically is. So feel free to you can feel free to ask me a question. I can pass it on to Rosanna, or Rosanna's excellent, and we'll get to your question as soon as she can. Phyllis, ever in New York?
not as a
I,
site as state. So if
yeah, I
the
don't think
group
so.
itself is in New York, no.
I would probably put an N in front of that, and an O after it.
Yeah.
Um,
Go
but
ahead,
yeah,
Jason.
there's a lot of New York companies we've worked with who have New Jersey situs or Connecticut situs capabilities. So that's really our only possibility at this point.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, okay, and are we good there? So I
Yeah,
just want to kind of review a little bit of what we said again. This right here is the extension and the restoration. So like Jason said, more often than not, we're quoting with both riders. Again, the maximum is a 6% benefit. Now, there is a 90-day elimination period. So, when somebody does have to go out on a long term care claim, there is a 90-day elimination period. Again, they have to be certified by a physician that they are chronically ill in order to qualify for claim. But long term care services can be both in facility and in home care. Obviously, during a long term care claim, the premiums are waived. If we're adding that restoration, like we've been talking about, that restores that death benefit back to 100%. But like Jason mentioned, if we're doing both, we're having 100, again, with that $100,000 example of a base amount, we're getting $100,000 of life insurance and $200,000 of long-term care benefits. So that is, a very rich policy. And when you reach out to either myself or Jason and you want to start looking at rates, I think what you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised by is just how affordable the product is. And I know Jason and the buddy tools that they have can actually illustrate that, comparison side by side with an individual fully underwritten long-term care policy, what that looks like as far as cost and underwriting, but then compare it with the hybrid product like the group whole life or the term life, and you will find that it's very affordable for what they're getting. And again, the best part, there's no underwriting, unless you do want to buy above, which you can in most cases. But if you're sticking with that guaranteed issue amount, I mean, not having any underwriting, I mean, that's just in itself just the most valuable thing.
Yeah, and just adding a little bit of flavor to the previous slide for my long-term care nerds out there. Um, Still, benefit triggers remain similar to other long-term care plans, though this is not filed as 7702B long-term care. It's still your 2 out of 6 ADL triggers. It
Okay.
is still severe cognitive impairment. The 90-day elimination period from the contract, in order for a day to count as a day in the elimination period, the insured must be chronically ill and charges must be incurred for the qualified long-term care services of the insured. So, service day, elimination period in that respect. Um, and let me think, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Let me grab this question in the chat and I'll come back to it. Is the death benefit restored if partially used for long-term care, or does the long-term care benefit need to be completely exhausted?
Say that one more time. Does the
So
long-term care benefit?
restoration of death benefit, let's
Mhm.
say I only use part of the death benefit for long-term care. Am I
Mhm.
still being restored? So
Yes.
like a dollar for dollar
Mhm.
without needing to exhaust the full death benefit? The answer is
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Thank you. Good question.
And I'm digging in my head for the other item I wanted to bring up, but oh, indemnity benefit,
Mhm.
not reimbursement, but not cash indemnity. Okay, so we are familiar normally in the individual space with one side of that fence or the other, but we are falling kind of right in the middle with really all of the group hybrids we're seeing out there on the market right now. So, um, regular indemnity, as I'll call it, means you still have to have proof of loss, right? You have to prove that you are receiving professional care in order to receive benefit. But in this case, the full monthly benefit is going to be sent to you in cash. So it's a little bit of a it's got a flavor of reimbursement and a flavor of cash indemnity. But yes, proof of loss, proof of receipt of professional care, something that could be recertified on an ongoing basis. They could recertify that every year and check in and say, hey, are you still receiving that professional care since we're giving you that benefit in cash? Um, is there a minimum on the professional care or hours per day? It's a great question, Phyllis. I had that answer at one point. Let me go back and find it. I think it may have been a couple of hours per day, but I don't want to speak in absolutes. I don't have it right off the top of my head. I'll
We
grab
can
that for you.
use that as a takeaway. All right. Well, thank you. That was a great segue into this next piece here, which gives you again some differentiators about the long-term care piece of the plans. Now, one thing, since we're talking about care, the plan, either the hybrid life with the group whole life or the term to 100, you'll notice that it says that we only require 2 licensed home care visits to pay for a full monthly benefit. So even if you have 2 days of care, you will receive the full, whether, let's just say our example of $100,000, we got a 6%, that means $6,000 is being paid. If they have 2 days of care, they're receiving that full $6,000 for that month. If it's one home care visit, 50% of that benefit. So in this example, $3,000. So we do have that, which Jason, again, you'll have to tell me. I think that might be a little different than some. From what I'm hearing from the field, a lot of carriers may require a full 30 days to get the full month benefit. In our situation, we require two days. But again, it does not matter. Rates are unisex, basically. So in most situations, I think it's females that tend to be more expensive because we tend to live longer, but it doesn't matter here. Rates are rates regardless of whether you're male or female. So, and there's no reduction. There's no age reduction on the plan. So just
Yeah, your slide actually sort of answered Phyllis's question, and
oh,
I
great.
in my mind, for some reason, I was thinking 2 hours, and I was like, why can't I get that out of my head? But it's two licensed home care visits.
Thank you. Great. That's what I was hoping for, but I wasn't sure. But yes, so that kind of talks to you a little bit more about the details of the plan. There's one aspect that we haven't talked about that probably is one of the most exciting features. It's not available in every state again. So when you reach out and you're interested in inflation protection, that's what we're going to talk about next. Reach out to, myself or Jason, any of the buddy team, and we'll let you know whether or not inflation protection is available in that state. But inflation protection grows the long-term care benefit by 5% annually. So we have an example here on the slide of the life with the long-term care with the extension of benefit. Now, remember, we talked about that. The extension of benefit is going to grow that benefit period by either, from 25 months to 50 months or for 17 months to 34 months. But by adding that 5% inflation protection, look at what it does. So let's just say in year one here, they have to go out on claim. They have the 6% benefit that first year. They're going to be receiving $6,000 a month. But most of the time, the people that we're talking to that are starting to have interest in long-term care, they're in their 40s or in their 50s, okay? And usually long-term care ages come, maybe, hopefully, a little bit older in our life, right? A little bit older. So let's just say in year 20 or 22, by adding that inflation protection, what did it do to that monthly long-term care benefit? It took it from $6,000 a month to $16,000 a month. And every year that continues to grow. So I don't know about where all of you are, but here in Southern California, it's a necessity to add that inflation protection because the average cost of long-term care, or in a facility is about $10,000 a month. So $6,000 a month is great. But if we're, like I said, if we're getting it at an age where we know it's on our mind, maybe right now we're dealing with aged parents where we're experiencing, the cost of long-term care for our loved ones right now. But it's in our mind that we better make sure we're prepared, by the time we're going to need this kind of thing. So adding inflation protection, a great solution to help grow that long-term care benefit. Now, this slide right here is for the group whole life. We have it available in Maine, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas. Now, you'll notice that in those states, it caps at $200,000 of an annual benefit, right? But if you look to the right, you see California and Utah. Now, in California and Utah, the inflation protection and the long-term care benefit is not capped. So you see it continue to grow up and above that 200,000. So how awesome is that?
So I have a good way to explain this.
Please.
Because so to make this simple conceptual, on the left-hand side, think of a cup and a straw. The left-hand side, your straw gets bigger. You can take bigger sips of your long-term care benefit, but your cup does not get any bigger. Okay, so you're taking bigger sips out of a cup that's the same size. On the right-hand side, which is this is really the Cadillac. Your cup gets bigger and your straw gets bigger. So we are actually seeing the total benefit accelerating on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, the amount you can accelerate gets larger, but your total benefit does not.
Mm-hmm. And so, Buddy, as a group, if inflation protection is available, I can tell you they're usually asking for
You've heard from us about this,
yeah.
maybe more than you'd like, but it's for a good reason. Especially if you're in California or Utah.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, this slide was created when we just had the group whole life. The one thing I noticed today, because I was running a proposal for Arizona for term to 100, and I noticed inflation protection was available there. So again, I don't have a list of the states because the product is so new with the long-term care. But the good news is that it's not just limited to the states that you see on the slide here. It has other states that we can add the inflation protection to. So another thing to think about. But again, if you want to know for certain, reach out to me. If you have a group in a specific state, I'll run it for you, run you a sample proposal, and let you know what we have in that state, what's available, and whether or not we have inflation protection.
Yeah, and a quick question from Phyllis, Rosanna, if you know the answer to this. Do we know when a client goes on claim if we are still getting that inflation protection growth year over year, or does it cease? Okay, perfect.
Yes. Yes. That's why when you see the benefit, and I was mentioning how in the first year you might be receiving 16,715. The next year it'd be at 17,551. You guys see that? So yes, even when you're on claim, it continues to grow.
Perfect.
Continues to grow. Well, that's what I prepared for you today, but I know we've been taking questions as we go, but now let's just, open it up, and any other thoughts or questions, let's discuss.
Yeah, we've got some good ones in here. First one, Chris is asking, are there any updates on association business in Texas? And we also just had a general question from Leland about Allstate benefits, the standard stance on non-employer groups in general.
So I will tell you that the standard side, how do I word this? Welcomes those opportunities a lot more. I said they're less conservative than Allstate Benefits has been. So I'm very excited about that piece. No, I don't have any more updates on Texas, but the one thing I will tell you is that now that we are one company with the standard, we're having conversations with the public sector teams on both the standard side and the team that's on the American Heritage side. So I would say that our opportunities will just expand more, probably by Q1 of next year. I'll have some better updates, let me say, on non-employer groups, associations, unions, and such. But like I said, the standard welcomes those a lot more than I think probably Allstate Benefits did. So I think we're going to have a lot more to work with here
Yeah,
shortly.
and just under the umbrella of non-employer, you guys actually, will consider, I always say consider, it's always going to be a case by case basis, guys, especially with non-employer business. Just in general, there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done to assess if we don't have a traditional employer-employee affinity, we got to take a look under the hood and see, is there going to be enough communications,
Mhm.
marketing awareness to be able to really constitute a group that um, Rosanna and her team are going to be comfortable with.
Mhm.
But if you want to talk through a couple of the non-employer opportunities that you guys will consider, I know we have, worked on a couple of association deals, but we have asks about credit unions as well. Any thoughts on those?
On credit, are you asking me?
Yeah.
Um, I would say just if you have an opportunity, bring it to me and I'll bring it to our public sector team. And what
Rosanna is our like biggest campaigner, cheerleader, hand-to-hand combat person we know.
literally,
Bring she if you can help get her excited about a case and give reason to get excited, she will go to bat. And I don't think either of us can say much more than that, but Rosanna's pretty good at going to bat. I'll just say that.
yeah. So
You know, Rosanna, you're our hero.
I'm
I
sorry,
didn't.
Phyllis, what was that?
I said Rosanna is our hero.
She is our
I
hero.
try to
Yes.
be. I try to be as best as
Uh,
I can. But yeah,
she
no, I
she
do
tries
try.
and she is.
Yeah. Um,
Superhero. Superhero.
Thank you. So as we, like I said, as we, start to work a little bit closer with the standard team, like I said, I think we'll have a lot more news to share on non-employer groups. But in the meantime, send it to me or send it to Jason, and right now that's what Buddy does. Is if they have an association in a specific state, I ask them to give me as much information about the association, copy of the bylaws if you're able to get a copy of those, and then I take it to my public sector team. They review it. They'll give us a yay or nay, maybe not at this time, early 2026 kind of an answer. But we have had a lot of really good wins with Buddy and associations over the last year. So like I said, Just bring it to me. Let's look at it. Let's see what we can do.
Just remember the piece of advice we always try to give for all group cases. These are quoted and underwritten at the same time. So this is underwriting, guys. So what that means is the more homework, the more due diligence that's done that you can provide to the carrier, the more they can look to see if they can give a benefit of the doubt and approval, or if it's just something that they can't consider. So
Mhm,
we're speaking a bit in generalities here, but this is,
mhm,
a time for Allstate benefits and the standard coming together. There is a heck of a lot going on to try
mhm.
to marry these two and their historical approaches and the product build together. I mean, you can only imagine how much is being crunched, but that's why we're kind of, placing this as give it to us with as much information as you can and grab on it, and we will go to bat for the case and see what's possible.
I see.
Yeah, so we did have some other questions in here. Scott, yes, inflation protection is going to be available in some states with term to 100. Given that the product is so new, we're kind of working on what that final list will be. Like we said, like 13 states popped up basically overnight as being ready to quote 11-1. So we're gathering that information. We'll be able to communicate it as soon as we possibly can. California and Utah for the guaranteed whole life are the only states that offer true benefit growth with 5% inflation, but the other states on that chart will provide an increase to the acceleration amount, but not the total benefit. Yes, Phyllis, definitely good to talk about. Spouses, parental coverage, we're not really going to see any of with these products, but for spouses, just from my experience and working with other carriers alongside Allstate, Allstate does a very good job of accommodating spouses, and Allstate is one of the few carriers we've seen that can actually accommodate guaranteed issue for spouses in certain situations.
Mhm,
Generally, a working spouse is going to get a higher guaranteed issue amount compared to a non-working spouse. Non-working spouse is going to get about half what you see for the working spouse. That is something that changes group to group. I've seen as small as 20 and 10. I've seen as high as, say, 50 and 30, 60 and 30. I mean, it's really going to depend on the size of the group and the type of opportunity there. But
mhm.
there are higher simplified issue amounts available to spouses as well. I would say generally up to, again, this is all kind of case to case, but up to maybe 150 for smaller groups, 250 for larger groups.
Mhm, mhm.
Maybe I missed it. Is there age reduction on term to 100 with long-term care?
Age
You'll
reduction? No.
have to fill me in. Okay. Well, the answer is no.
No. So the term to 100 stays level, is until age 100. That's why it's called that. Now, I mentioned earlier that the one thing that people kind of get caught up on when they talk about the term to 100 is it states there that the death benefit is guaranteed for the first 5 years. Now, even though that sounds a little scary, like, okay, what's going to happen to my death benefit in year 6? But one thing that I want to mention and point out is in order to trigger a death benefit decrease, a mortality experience would need to deteriorate by more than 20% over current pricing levels. To give you an example, during COVID, that didn't do anything to our term to 100. With the death benefit, there was no reduction. So it has to be something really significant to trigger the decrease in the death benefit. So, we have to say it's guaranteed for 5 years. That's the way the contract reads. But like I mentioned, if a guaranteed death benefit is really important to someone or in a group, then you go with the group whole life.
Yeah, Steve, I will fetch you a little one pager for the term to 100 that we have made on our side.
Good.
And I know they're getting the marketing materials together for that um, on Rosanna's side, so we'll be able to distribute that as soon as we have it. Um, I just want to do a note on kind of like typical guaranteed issue amounts we see, at least for GWL. And Rosanna, you may have put out more proposals for term to 100 than I have at this point, so maybe you can give us a conservative range for GWL for smaller groups, generally those under 100. I would say some groups can differ, of course. It's tough to speak in generalities. We generally see a guaranteed issue amount of about 75,000, and that's for sure
Mhm.
what you're going to see if you're under
Mhm.
25 lives.
Mhm.
Um, and one other note for small groups, if your group is under 10 lives, you are guaranteed issue amounts only. We are not looking at simplified issue underwriting for
Mhm.
any groups under 10 lives in this case.
Yeah.
So that is one thing to consider. For groups above 100 and higher, generally, again, this is going to be a lot of fluctuation, and Rosanna, feel free to correct me, but we're seeing a lot of about 150,000 GI amounts
Mhm.
with larger cases or cases with very favorable demographics or employer funding
Mhm.
um, could see higher GI amounts.
I mean, you nailed it, um, Jason. So any groups under 10, for sure. Max GI death benefit amount is 75,000. If buying above the guaranteed issue amount is important to you, um, I want to also let you all know that Buddy Insurance, because they've been such a great partner with American Heritage, formerly Allstate Benefits, they have what's called a premier underwriting offer. So another reason you want to work with Buddy is because they have an offer that, you know, if you are just starting out and you come directly to me and you want to start selling, you wouldn't be able to get the offer that they have. So small groups, like he said, 75, that's the max, no option to buy up. But when we start to get into groups over 10, you know, we can, it still may be 75 depending on the group, but we have the option to buy above. Now, the product itself goes up to 250,000 of a death benefit. So if we're going to extend the, you know, the product that high again, and they would have to answer EOI questions. Um, but Jason mentioned it. The larger the group, the more I can ask for, especially
Um,
if it's like a competitive situation. Maybe they already have a product in place and we're trying to, you know, replace it or beat it, you know, pricing, coverage, you know, that situation, I can always ask for more, but the larger the group, the more we can get.
yeah,
So
let
what
me
about the
just
little groups, the three, y'all? What about that?
75 max,
Yeah,
75K max.
so not just 10, but all the way down to three.
Yep,
75,000.
Yeah.
yep.
So under 10, just know 75,000 is the max GI, the max actually product you're going to get. There's no opportunity to buy above 75,000. But then remember, 75,000 and then adding that extension of benefit is 150,000 in long-term care benefit. Okay.
And so
ROB, restoration benefits.
And the
Restoration.
restoration.
yep.
Mhm.
So we have the 3 lives, we have the 10 lives. If we're
Mhm.
under 6, remember, we have to add another voluntary benefit. Not that if you're a 5-person group and we have a 6 at minimum, if one person purchases another voluntary benefit and all 5 purchase the life with long-term care, that is going to hit the 6 at minimum. And Rosanna is happy to hop on a call. I'm happy to hop on a call to talk through with the group. I had a very, very kind of um, customization heavy group that I had Rosanna on a call with me with a couple of weeks ago. And it was a group of 4. They were looking to get to the 6 at minimum because they wanted the guaranteed issue long-term care. And we just sat on a call and chiseled it out until it felt like it fit like a glove for the group to get us to a 6 at minimum. And by the end, we had a happy customer on our hands. So whatever it will take to get there, we're happy to kind of walk through all of
Mhm.
the plans that could qualify to get a group to the 6 at minimum. And again, for groups of that size, you're going to want employer funding for groups
Mhm.
of that size. I I would technically be fibbing if I said it was absolutely required, but guys, it's basically customary. We don't want to have a situation where we don't hit the 6 at minimum on a group. So employer funding to get there is essentially a requirement for groups that small.
Mhm. I
Let's
saw
see.
some questions pop up there.
Yeah, Steve had a question. Can we offer GI each year during open enrollment if the employee hasn't enrolled at that level initially? We've been able to do this with Chubb in the past, and it's been successful.
So it can be requested. Typically, GI is your first year open enrollment time and new hires that come on board in the first year. Usually by the second year, if an employee was there and they passed on it that first, initial year, they're subject to EOI. Depending on the group, depending on the group size, depending on how the group has performed, we can ask for another year of GI. But I can't tell you for sure that you'd get it. So it just depends. But typically, no. Typically, that's one of the reasons when we're rolling it out, we encourage everybody take advantage of this now because we might not be able to extend it to you next year if you wait on it. So have them take
Okay.
advantage of that. Yeah.
We've seen it go any which way depending on the group. There's you can always ask, and there's always an attempt to be flexible, just
Mhm.
not always the case that we're able to be flexible.
The larger the group, and again, how it's performing, we might have a better chance. The smaller groups, probably not.
Okay.
So does each employee sign an application online?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think it's important too to remind the groups that you're working with, because we do a lot, I do a lot, that it's not a guarantee next year. So if you're gonna do this, like get going on it. And it's just like individual sales. You just don't know, on the individual side, you don't know your health. On the group side, it doesn't matter, it's GI. But again, to my point again, and I say it all the time to these groups, if you're gonna do it now, because I don't know what's on the other side. And so they tend to take that leap and go ahead and get it done.
Not to
And
mention,
maybe how long's the window, the enrollment window?
It does depend. I mean, we've got this group going in and it'll be all finished up by 12/31. They're gonna do an enrollment between 10/15 and 11/15 with an effective date of January 1. So typically what we see is,
30
as
days?
Mark always says, 6 week, certainly when it's all set up 6 weeks, you count backwards. But they're usually, God, Jason, we've had them for a
We
month.
we see about a month. 30 days is generally kind of your bread and butter standard enrollment. If you got a super large group that, has a lot of different moving parts to it, we have seen like a perpetual for a year. But I would say for most of your standard employer groups, you're going to see about a 30-day enrollment window.
Mhm.
Howard asks, is this payroll deduction or completely employer paid? So just to kind of round things out, Rosanna, please correct me if I get anything wrong.
Okay.
For groups, well, we have the option of payroll deduction or ACH, and we do have fully supported employer paid business as well. Allstate can accommodate the ability to do, say, a base plus buy-up, where the employer funds some of it and the employees can voluntarily buy up from there up to the GI Max or into SI if available for them. Um, there was one other thing that I was thinking about here. Oh, with employer paid, generally we're doing this by a salary gross up or a bonus on the back end. So essentially, the employee is going to enroll and pay for what they'd like, and the employer is going to fund them on the back end by raising their salary, essentially. So there's a number of different things you can do with that. You can have the employer say, hey, I will fund 50% of whatever you purchase, or I will fund up to $50,000 of face amount if you enroll in 50,000. Any amount you purchase above that is up to you. So you can get pretty flexible with that.
Yeah, however they want to do it. I mean, any type of employer funding is going to help that participation that much more. But yeah, like Jason mentioned, there's a lot of different ways we can do it. There's it's really all up to them. All the smaller groups, like you mentioned, it might be 100% employer paid. Maybe the employer chooses $50,000 for everybody. But like you said, we can be flexible. So whatever they want to do, let's have a conversation. Let's see what's the best way to do it. But yes, it can be payroll deducted. It can, have just, if it's employer paid, a bill to the employer, or we can do directed ACH. So we have some options there.
And you are always going to get, literally at least twice a week, I get this question. If the employee pays the premium via a payroll deduction, must it be after tax for the LTC benefit to be received tax-free? I get that at least twice a week.
I mean,
yeah,
that's how you want to do it.
yeah,
You want to
exactly.
make sure it's done on a post-tax basis. You don't want the insured to have to pay taxes on their benefits. So it is I don't think I've seen anybody asked to do a pre-tax on the life with the long-term care. It just doesn't make any sense. So
But they always ask. It's like,
yeah.
wait a minute, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I know we're coming up on time, Jason. So I just want to make sure everybody has my contact information. Of course, you can reach out to anybody from the Buddy team, but if you have any questions on some of the things that we've covered today or state specific questions, please, this is my information. Reach out to me. I'm happy to help you guys. Like I said, I love working with the Buddy team. They're just great to work with. And one thing I do want to leave you with is make sure you do utilize them specifically for the education. This is a product that requires a lot of education. It's not something that you want to throw up there and just hope people enroll in it. It's something that needs time, enrollment conditions, webinars, group meetings, whatever it needs to be. And Buddy is great at that. So please utilize their services, their underwriting. They have a lot to offer. So I'm very happy to be working with them. And thank you again for inviting me today. So please
Yeah,
reach out to me.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad your contact info is up there on the screen. I think folks need to know about you, see you. I have no idea how you have time to do other things with how much time you spend with us, to be perfectly honest. Guys, Rosanna is like the definition of someone who will make you feel like you shouldn't fear your opportunities. She will help you go to bat. She will work tirelessly to help us with any of the cases that come our way. So if you have anything in mind, feel free to reach out to us. We can kind of build that bridge to Rosanna for you. Or if you're kind of already working with us on a regular basis, feel free to go to Rosanna directly. She is a complete all-star and is definitely built a little differently with the way she works. So appreciate y'all being here today. Appreciate you taking the time, Rosanna. Hope to have you on another time in the near future. Given that we have a number of small group opportunities in our network, let's maybe plan on a session where we talk through some of the other VB products so we can get the community introduced to those a little bit more as well. But that'll do it. Thank you all for being here today, and be well, and we'll talk to you this time next week.
Thank you all.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.